So welcome, Dylan. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, DK.
Really appreciate you making yourself available. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you as a podcast guest. I know we have conversations all the time.
Yeah.
So we know each other for many years, actually. And back in the day, you had a burger truck.
I did.
And now you're doing VR.
This is true.
Right.
Yes.
And I actually have to say, one of the things I have to credit you for starting this podcast is you said to me, if I like it, somebody else will probably like it too.
Mm-hmm.
And it really dawned on me that there's a lot of things I really wanted to do, but I was always concerned about, I don't know if people are interested in this or there's a market for it. So I was so attached to the outcome, so I never actually get started those things. Mm-hmm. It was just like a fleeting thought. Sure. But what you said was really pivotal, because I have been looking for a podcast like what I'm doing right now, a conversation amongst men, intersection between what's meaningful, living this life, and also doing stuff, right? As an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And as well as spirituality and everything. So really, really appreciate it. So thank you for inspiring me for taking that action.
Yeah. I'm glad you found value in the conversation, man. I'm very happy about that. I think we are constantly inspiring each other. I think humans think on top of each other and with each other. And so, I find this to be very inspiring. I love in-depth conversations, and, maybe one day I'll do a podcast of my own. So this is very cool, man. I'm so glad you're doing this.
Yeah. If anything, actually, since you're already doing virtual reality type things and you're already doing events, easily turn that into a podcast. It's actually nothing. It's not a far stretch.
Yeah.
So why don't we go a little bit about sort of your starting points? What your pivotal events that made you the person you are, the man that you are. So that way people get a little bit more related to who you are as a person.
My name's Dylan. So I've always been kind of fascinated with technology and people and how we interact and how we play and the things that we do. Went to school for a degree in business from Cal State Fullerton. After that, I spent years in the hotel industry and things like that. After a while, I was very interested in starting my own business, so I looked into a couple of different ways to do that. So there's a number of different small startup ventures that I kind of did and wore a bunch of different hats. So it's kind of like as you do different types of startup adventures or whatever you want to call it, you pick up different tools and skills and things along the way. It wasn't until I saw the great food truck race, the first episode, that I was really inspired, going, oh, there's a way for me to get into and have my own business that's relatively low cost versus a restaurant that I was looking into that was so expensive. So got inspired from watching the great food truck race. 90 days later, we were rolling out without any experience with our own food truck. So I quit my job. We bought the truck. We really didn't know anything about the industry, but we just wanted to get in and get going and mess up and learn along the way. When we bought the truck, we didn't even know how to light the pilots. So we asked them, what do you do? Can we shadow you? And they're like, you'll figure it out. So we were off to the races, and it was really quite the journey doing food trucks and kind of understanding how they work. And I had several pivotal moments going through the business because, like you said, when I first started out, I was just trying to get people to find me. And so we came out with the name the Orange County Food Truck, because I figured if people were going to Google Orange County Food Trucks, they would find us.
SEO friendly.
Yeah, SEO friendly. The only issue is that, nobody could identify with anything. You couldn't identify with who we are, what we did, or anything about it. And so what I'd like to do is I always like to hear what people say, because I feel people, they have these two counterbalancing emotions. They have how they feel about you and what your things are, but then they also have the they don't want you to feel bad. People in general, even if you're a stranger, don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to hurt your things. And so ironically and paradoxically, they would not tell you the things you'd need to know to get better at a business, your food sucks, I don't understand who you are, what you do. And so a lot of times I would just listen. I'd stand out in the truck and just listen. I'd hear people, and they want to understand who we are and what we did. And there were several moments in the food truck business that we can always dive into later, but There are moments that I realized that I kind of had to find what I liked and what resonated with me. So just one of those stories, was nobody was going to our truck. We were doing $200 to $300 a day. And there's these different moments that other trucks were busy and we weren't. There was just enough people for other trucks to be busy and we weren't. So there was something that we were doing or not doing that wasn't allowing us to kind of, get traction. And so I went to a bookstore called like Barnes & Noble or something. And I opened up a book called Bobby Flay's Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. And I looked in there and there's like these giant burgers. And I was like, oh my God, this Artinian Muchetta cheeseburger with like crispy onion strings. And I flipped the page and then there was like this like, gorgeous barbecue cheddar burger. And I was just like, oh my God. And that's when the light went off. And that's kind of how I dictated the rest of my startupness is, I like this, and since I like this and this sounds good, then other people will resonate with that too. I think if you try to sell to everybody, you appeal selling to nobody. Through the course of a night, we took 12 cans of spray paint and spray painted over my $5,000 professionally done wrap and threw a $75 sticker up, and we became Burger Monster. And we went to the same stops, but then we went from being one of the least busiest trucks to one of the most busiest trucks just by some spray paint and having a message that people resonate with, and going from 26 menu items to 6 menu items and focusing on quality over quantity. Did that for a while, got bigger and bigger, did more and more work. And it's just funny the evolution of like business. Like the first day that we did it, I think very much like life is very much a journey, and you have paths that you can go on, but there's always these threshold guardians like Joseph Campbell style that will stop you and say, are you serious? Do you really want to go forward? And then it's your choice to either rescind or move forward. And so the first day we got up at 6 a.m. to prep all the food. And it took us all day to get ready for an event that was 6 p.m. Through the shift, I was the chef on the truck.
So you actually got in, got your hands dirty.
Got in. I was on the truck. I was leading it. While we got started, my partner became a vegetarian. And
what do you mean?
Halfway through, he's like, I'm a vegetarian now. I was like, okay, so we have a burger truck and you're a vegetarian. So I will be testing everything and tasting it. You do what you need to do. We worked that shift, and it was a long, grueling shift, and it was very stressful and emotionally because you're trying to prepare food for people. And I actually had this big butcher's knife, and I was cutting through this turkey, and it sliced through, and I cut off.
Oh wow! Look at that.
My pinky finger, and it basically filleted open. And I had to put a rubber glove, tape that, put a blue glove on, tape that down, and I was cooking my first shift with one hand. And
wow.
Yeah. And so at the end of it, I think we did like, I don't know, $200, $250. And I was just like, oh my God, that took 16 hours. That cost like $150. And, between 4 of us, we made this. I was like, oh, this is hard. And we looked at the numbers and we're like, oh, how are we going to do this? And we're like, no, we'll figure it out. Fast forward years later, you get better and you fix things in business. I feel that businesses never start great. I think they always start wherever they start. And then it's a series of fixing a million little things. And as you do that, you figure those things out. You get a little bit better at different things. And to one day we had, we're doing these big events, and, over coffee in a half an hour, we planned a weekend where we, would do close to $10,000 to $15,000 a day. And so, but that happened through a slow, gradual process. But if I would have quit on day one, and been like, that would have been my experience, and that would have been
$50 profit.
That's all food trucks are, and I wouldn't have known anything different. And so I think that's true with almost any endeavor you're on. You stay on the grind, and if you're really passionate about it, at some point there's a tipping point where the value that you generate is greater than the effort it's worth, and then that's when you're really in a good spot for a business. And so carry that same passion, that thought process over for when we got into virtual reality.
Well, pause for a second, because what you just shared, that story is so inspiring. I think a lot of people, especially aspiring entrepreneurs, they hear all these stories about Facebook or Instagram. Or Groupon, 18 months, $1 billion business. That's what they think. If all the stars align, I could be the next. I mean, you could be.
You can.
The probability is small, but you could be. So let me just, for the skeptics out there, right, who's wondering, like, is it really 1% iteration, every iteration, 1% improvement every iteration towards from $50 profit to $15,000 profit or revenue?
Sure.
Or is there like a special hack, right? Everyone wants to do that, like a growth hack or productivity hack or...
I mean, I'd say brutal honesty is your growth hack. You know, like, I mean, really, I mean, the quicker you can be more honest with yourself, more honest with what you're doing, who you're serving, the quicker you're willing to recognize your own foibles and whatevers, the quicker you can accelerate. And it's just when people, how long does it take someone to learn that issue, right? How long does it take them to figure out, you know, that what they're making people don't want, or they're not talking to the right people? Like, there's generally some sort of fear or some sort of unwillingness to look in the mirror of your business, your life, or whatever, and get totally honest, that limits people from growing.
Well, okay, let me actually put myself in this position. This is a brand new podcast.
Sure.
Right? You know, people all over the world, actually, I'm really surprised and flattered that people all over the world are starting to download this.
Awesome.
Right? So that's awesome. But the numbers, right? If I let myself to kind of just focus on the numbers, like, oh man, comparing to Tim Ferriss or whoever, these big Joe Rogan, right? Your
absolutely
your idol.
Yeah.
And then I'll be disheartened because by no means I'm there.
Yeah.
Right. So then how does one, and not using myself as an example, how does one continue to go on that path in spite of the lack of feedback, the lack of that immediate, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's I don't want to give a trite answer. It's just that, you know, it's about the reason, what propels you. Like, how can you make a should a must? And then how do you keep to that must?
Oh, say a little bit more, please.
I just mean like everyone thinks they should do things. I should work out. I should get my life in order. I should, you know, be nicer. I should spend time with the family. I should start a startup. Whatever that should is. But there's some sort of inflection moment, some sort of thing where a should becomes a must. And those are, whatever that reason is, propels you forward to keep going, right? So it could be through negative motivation, it could be through positive motivation, but there's something that will keep you on that grindstone. And so you really understanding what motivates you and understanding that you are both the dungeon master and the player in the game of life, and then figuring out what you can do to keep moving forward.
I'm assuming that's Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons.
Just
you tell your own story to your life that you then live, right? And so it's just figuring out, how do you keep going? You know, there could be a pot of gold at the end of that, and that's what motivates you. It could be that there's a monster chasing you. That's what motivates you. It could be you're doing it for your little kid. It could be that you're doing it for just glory and fame and riches. I mean, everyone's got different reasons of what motivates them. The question is, can you understand what motivates you? And then can you keep going over and over and over again until you get to the point of success? Whatever that is.
Yeah,
right. Whatever
that
consider.
definition is.
Yeah.
So let's, if you don't mind getting a little personal, what motivates you personally? Back up. So what motivates you, and how did you discover that?
Sure. So I mean, just as one of those examples, you get stimuli by your body, right? Your body tells you things, and you sometimes choose whether or not to listen to it, right? And so what I mean by that is Bobby Flay's Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. I opened it up. I felt the motivation of wanting to eat the burgers on the page.
I see.
And I'm like, oh, well, that motivates me. Well, then that might motivate other people. Oh, right? Same thing happened with Oculus headset. I backed Oculus on Kickstarter. Headset came on. I put it on. And I was like, oh, well, this is possible too. So not necessarily listening to what everyone says you should or shouldn't do, but being drawn by your own body telling you what you should or shouldn't do. And then trying to cultivate and be aware of those feelings in your body and going, well, why am I not happy right now? Or why am I happy? And being able to recognize it. But the thing is, we sometimes are just so unaware of just what our body's telling us. This is what I wanted. This is the relationship I wanted. This is the job I want, but I'm still not happy. Well, why? Like, what is that? A lot of times, like, people are like, be happy or do things, and sometimes you can't like get there. You have to embody it. You have to be it. You have to move it, and and then by willing yourself to do that, you then get into that state. And so I think if you're aware of what causes those states and you can do it, you can create, through your own action and will, a habit of getting into those places and then finding those places and then searching for those places. And seeking out those things.
So there's a quote I stumbled upon recently I really like. He said, you can't think your way out of a new action, but you can act your way out of your new thinking, or something like that.
Yeah. Right. I've heard something like that. It's like you can't talk yourself out of a situation you behaved yourself into, or something like that. I don't know. But it's to that effect. But yeah, totally. It's really hard to separate your perception and what's real, what's like fact from perception. It's like super tricky. It's really gray because you don't know like, is the seat you're sitting on comfortable? Is it hard? Is it squishy? Is it your own perceptions? Is it your perception about this chair and all the times you ever sat on a chair like this that makes you think about this? Is it like it's very hard to pick out what causes those things and analyze that and then test those things to reinforce those. So many people kind of go with just the flow and they don't ever try to actively cultivate, those things and really understand and stop and ask themselves why. They just kind of like, they're on the momentum of what they think their family wants them to do. They're on the moment of I'm on this track, without stopping to say, this will make me happy. They think that the end destination will make them happy, that thing will make them happy. And, it may or may not. And sometimes it's worth it to stay on a path to evolve your skills and then realize that doesn't make you happy, but then take those skills and go to another place,
So it sounds like you're pretty self-conscious, like self-aware. Did you practice that? Is it cultivated? Were you always just attentive to what's happening in your body? There's moments, right, as you talked about.
Yeah, well, it's just something I actively work on. I'm not saying that I'm great at it. I definitely have moments where I'm unaware, and then I catch myself, and I go, "Oh, why did I do that?" Or "What did that happen?" And I think the more you check in with yourself, the more you cultivate that habit of, "Well, I wonder what I am feeling right now," or those questions, or whatever it is. Then the more you can catch yourself. But I think that there's always some sort of lag between what you feel to what you know. And so, with people that don't ever ask those questions, they never find out what made those things. They might blame the world, but realize it's trauma from their past, or they might whatever. And so, I routinely lead with emotion and don't catch myself until it's too late. And then I have to go back at that and go, oh, okay, what did I do? And how do I mitigate that in the future? And what kind of habits and things can I train myself on so that I can create a little bit of space between stimuli and response.
You might concretize that a little bit. I want to make sure that people are not only inspired, but I can actually take some specific action. So what kind of disciplines or habits do you have as a way to help you lengthen that space?
Yeah, sure. So there's a typical like awareness practice. Like you check in with yourself and you kind of go, okay, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? Where am I at? What are my emotions? And just giving yourself a little bit of time to kind of like look inwards. And so doing that on a consistent basis so that when something gets triggered, you realize that, in one of the thoughts, it's like, you are not your thoughts. You are not your like emotions. You are not those things. And if you can separate the being that is your self versus the body that you inhabit, your brain that you inhabit, then you can realize that you get that disconnected, and you can allow yourself to go, okay, I do this all the time because it's habit. Whether I go to 7-Eleven and I go get a Coca-Cola, and every time I go around the corner, I go and do that. And it's like, okay, well, can you actively cause new habits and new patterns? So, for me, it's like, for example, like sometimes I get really emotional. I'm Italian. I talk a lot. I get really invested. I get very personal. And one of my favorite quotes is, an idea is never as important as you think it is while you're thinking it. So whenever you get those ideas, you're like, this is it. This is the greatest thing, or this is the worst thing, or whatever. Maybe it is. If you can just kind of take a step back, do a breather, take a time out, and give yourself a little bit of space, you get a bit clearer on it. And so, for me, it's like, recognizing those feelings in my body, good, bad, or whatever, and either writing down what's going on in that moment, taking a break to kind of reflect back and going, is this what I really want to do? Or having like little mantras or sayings or something that allows you to kind of, when that thing triggers, train your body, Pavlov style, to say, do, respond in a different way. And you can. It's an ongoing battle, but it's I think it's a worthy fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I take a lot of notes doing, let's say, an ayahuasca ceremony, and people are always so impressed. Like, how can you take notes? In my mind, I think to myself, how can you not? Because you go through this intense experience. If I don't write it down, it may feel very significant, very meaningful in the moment, but then I have no frame of thought to actually look at it objectively. So writing it down give me that space later on to look at it a little bit more objectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we feel like we're these like independent little boxes of people, and that all we have is what's in us and around us and stuff. But I think you really do. We are connected, and I think that you can think on paper, and you can think on walls, and you can think with people, and you can do those things. So one type of kind of giving you space is journaling. I like to journal, so I sometimes do what's called morning pages. Sometimes we get up and then you just kind of jot 3 pages down. Just don't stop. And the goal is, can you keep going without stopping? Because it's kind of like meditating, is that if you meditate, you'll meditate for a couple seconds and then you'll pop off, right? You'll spin off in a circle. Or trying to read. You try to read and your brain starts thinking about other stuff. And I think you train your brain to be able to get more focused. And I think there's a therapeutic, cathartic advantage to that. And so for me, I kind of trust my own brain that in the morning times I'll write things down. I go, okay, Dylan, good morning pages. What do we want to talk about today? Okay, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep writing. Well, when I say talking, I mean writing. I'm going to keep writing about things, and here's my topics, and here's the things I need to do. What are some of the things I need to work on? And I just kind of go. And I get that all out to where I feel like I'm hearing myself. Like I get to, my brain or whatever's going on in me gets to be heard by myself. And I think, so often you want to be heard. You want to be heard from other people. You want to be heard by this. You want to be heard by that. And I think, not a lot of people take time to listen to themselves. And to me, that's a really helpful way to kind of give yourself some space and feel like you have, enough space, enough time, enough thought given into things.
So you talk to yourself as yourself.
Yeah.
To the pages.
Yeah, I write down kind of prompts and thoughts, and I go, what do I want to talk about? What are my thoughts? And then as the thoughts come down, I keep going. And then, like a monkey mind, I'll forget, my hand will lift up, and I go back down, like put my hand back down it. And whatever happens. And then usually through the course of a couple of pages, your body will start kicking out ideas and concepts, and then you can go back and look at it, underline all the groovy bits, and then figure out, what's... Groovy
bits, I like that.
You know what I'm saying? Just put things down, and then you figure out what sticks. And some things, some of it's jargon, but then I don't know. I think it's healthy.
Yeah, actually, so I've heard this other practice. Some very similar. It's called the mirror exercise. So a lot of actors do that. They stare themselves into the mirror. They start to converse with themselves.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very similar.
Yeah.
And I think taking your concept, I use the mirror. You can actually have a recorder and just have a conversation, staring yourself into the eye, into your own eyes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. Yeah, I do. I have a vision statement thing that I've worked on, and what I do is I'm very an audio learner. I like to listen. That's the way I process data. So I have an audio recording of my vision statement that I listen to in the morning, and so when I'm going about my business, I can listen to my own audio statement, and I can hear me say that back to me, and that allows me to kind of keep alignment with my best self.
So for those of you that's hearing some yawning in the background, that's little Buddha yawning because he's bored.
He's super cute. He's got this awesome gremlin mohawk thing going on with him. He looks like he's down to party.
He is always. How was that experience?
Pulls you into the present. Yeah, it definitely gets your attention. There's one thing I want to do that my partner did. I just signed up for a thing called ClassPass. You heard about that?
Yeah.
So I did it because I haven't done cryo chambers, and that's on the list, and so I want to do the cryo chamber. But my partner Matt just did that today, and he was trying to think about business and work and trying to figure out something that we were stuck on earlier. And he's like, I couldn't. He's like, all you have is the present moment, and you have to be present. And I think really what makes us the most happy is being able to spend as much time in the present moment as possible. So
it's true. I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier, pain may be inevitable.
Yeah.
There's a saying in Chinese, 生老病死 means birth, getting old, getting sick, dying. These are inevitable. It's part of the human experience. But suffering is a construct that we added, right? Have you done Vipassana, by the way?
Yeah, I think so. That's the breathing?
No, Vipassana is a 10-day meditation retreat.
Oh, no, I haven't
silent.
done it. No, I haven't done it.
So they go into the mechanics of it and have you just like sit for hours and hours. And no looking at another person, no taking notes, no nothing. So all you have is in your head. Right? So it's very intense that way.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a worthy challenge.
Yeah, I can't wait. So many people, we talked about so much about business and one of the things are, what's the hack? The hack is, can you be honest with yourself? And I think so many people find ways to fill their time because they're afraid of spending time with themselves, right? And so you're bored, so you jump on your phone, or you're by yourself, so you call your girlfriend, or you just don't want to be with you right now. And it seems like the most content people are good. Just they've faced those demons and they are good with themselves. And I feel like 10 days of not allowing yourself to run away will break whatever habits or patterns you're used to of running away.
It's really challenging.
So you've done it?
I've done it.
Yeah.
It's really challenging.
What was like the big what was the big takeaway at the end of it? Like what was
It was my first time, so it's hard for me to, how do I articulate? I'm a little woozy, by the way, so it's a little bit like, number one, I proved to myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
So that was the motivating factor.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
But the second thing, what was interesting is, before going in, my biggest concern was not talk for 10 days. That was not the most challenging part.
No.
The most challenging part was just literally be present for 10 days. And after day 3, the walls start to compress.
Ooh.
So all I had was my mind. And it was so interesting just seeing my mind running this path, because the brain had nowhere to go. So we're just looping. Everything I've done, that things I wasn't so proud of.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just looping. And then it became a lot of just like crazy thoughts.
Yeah.
Like what ifs, what could have, the brain just had nowhere to go. So just keep looping. And that's the thing, that's the compressive part.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of, I was able to like just sit with it rather than, because a lot of people quit.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, not a lot of people can stick around. Even some of the most, I would have bet money on certain people because they woke up like extra early to take a shower, they go to sleep on time, like even like they sit still. Even those people, they quit. I was like, wow, so interesting.
That's interesting. I find a way to keep going.
Yeah.
So you found yourself telling stories, living memories, telling yourself stories about those memories?
Yeah, and then basically in the end I must just fully embrace who I was, what I did, what I said, and be okay with it. I think when I go back again, I'm actually interested, because that was about 2 years ago, roughly. I'm interested to see how am I able to test myself again.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So you also made an interesting point earlier. I'm curious. So part of the thing that makes you the happiest is being this present moment, right? And to me, that's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Because my mind is trained. I have this wild trained machine to project, to be strategic, to think ahead.
Yeah.
So being present is the opposite of that.
Yeah. I was at this cryptocurrency conference thing that we built this augmented reality app for the conference. And I met this super interesting dude who's all into neurobiology. He said this thing that really stuck with me was, be conscious with the things that you will want to change, and be unconscious with the things you love.
And what does that mean?
So what that means is, if you're unhappy with your weight, for example, you're like, be conscious about the things you want to change. So you're like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to plan. This is what I need to do to fix this. And you say, that's what I want to change. And you be very conscious about the things you want to change. Be conscious with the things that you want to change in your life. Be unconscious with the things that make you happy. So if you're spending time with your girl makes you the happiest, or spending time in the park makes you happy, don't go to the park and then think about what you want to change. Don't go and spend time running around with your dog and thinking about how you need to lose weight. Find the things that make you happy and then be in that moment and lose yourself in that moment. And then find the things you want to change and be cognizant and figure out how you want to change those things.
Interesting. Is that contrary to what you were saying earlier about being present?
Well, I think
It sounds contrary. So if you can say a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think there's certain things that make people happy, right? And then there's certain demons that people have in their life, right? And I think that you could be present 100% of the time, all the time. I just think that humans also like progress. Humans like to get better at things. Humans like to grow. Humans like to go places, right? But I think the issue is more about being able to state shift, right? So understanding, okay, I'm in the state of planning. I want to get better at this. I will allow myself this amount of time to do this thing, and I will work on this thing. After that, I will let go of this thing, and I will move into another state of being present. And you give yourself a
I see. So still being present.
You can be present. It's just if there's things you want to change, you need to be conscious about changing those things.
I see.
And when you're unconscious, like playing with your dog, you're in the present moment because you're not thinking about the bills and how you need to go and do something. And so it's just conscious in the things you want to change, unconscious with the things you love.
Yeah. So I heard something similar before.
Sure.
You said a lot of people think about sex when they're at work, and then think about work when they're doing sex.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of being present.
Exactly. That's 100% it.
So what I'm hearing you say, what that guy said, translating is just focus on whatever the task that you're doing, right? Compartmentalize or whatever it may be.
Yeah, being able to control your state, because a lot of people, they'll never, let themselves be a thing, right? They're like you get to work exactly. You get to work and you think about going home. You go home, you're thinking about work. You go on vacation. You're never allowing yourself to just be,
So is there a thing that you do to keep yourself in this present moment? Because it's easy for the brain to run away to do something else.
I don't think there's an easy answer to just do this and you'll be completely present all the time.
Sure.
I think that it's a much like business. There's a million little things that you can do that kind of slowly get better and better towards that. Like one is kind of get the monkey mind in check. So work out your body extremely hard, right? So you ain't got any extra energy. Journal all your thoughts down. Meditate so that you can train your mind that when it wanders, you put it back on. Cultivate the skills of being present, And I think for me, if I drank 15 cups of coffee, didn't work out, right? And I would just be so, you can flood your system, at the same time. If you ran a marathon, if you did something incredibly extraneous, one of my things I like is there's no greater feeling than lying on the field of battle, knowing you gave your all, right? And there's at that moment that you've earned that appreciation of that moment, I think if you sat at home all day, eating cheesy poofs, watching Netflix, at the end of that day, you don't feel great. If you had this big challenge and you do this thing and you're gunning on this thing and you give it your all and then you just lay back like, oh, that's everything I got. You do things that make you proud and you cultivate those moments. And I think those are ways to be present. I think there's a bunch of factors that will affect your brain and cause you to jump off, whether it's trauma from the past or things you're putting in your body, or things you're thinking, or things you're eating, or whatever it is. But there's a lot of things that your body will, not be good where it is.
You said these things as if it was really obvious. But I personally didn't find it obvious. I had to learn different paths and then taste the after effect of not being present.
Yeah, sure.
And then long enough where then basically then it got hit by a transformational 2x4, like an ayahuasca ceremony or Vipassana, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I should change my behavior.
Those help.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's obvious, man. I am still working on this. I'm not saying I'm anywhere remotely close to I've got this figured out. I just know it's like, what's the secret? Really hard work. It's like there's not like a really good answer. I think you can get boot camps that will accelerate you there, but unless you cultivate it, you won't keep it. And there's ways to cultivate it, and it's not. I don't think it's a secret formula. It's not science. I mean, these are things that maybe we didn't know when we were kids, but now, I mean, all this stuff is Googleable online, and you can find it and realize that, like, there's facets of being a human that you need every day, and if you can tick those buckets, you need social connection, deep focus time, you need rest, you need physical exertion, you need these different things to really achieve that kind of homeostasis balance of everything's okay. I mean, but and that kind of keeps you in line. But things can knock you off if you're not aware of it. So I'm still working on it.
So one of the latest meditation retreat I went on, I was able to get to see my nervous tics, and only I know. Because I do like scratch here, adjust things here, and then tweak things here. I mean, that's all I was doing the whole time. I was able to like watch the whole freaking thing. I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy.
Oh my god!
And what I realized, and thinking back at everything you said, I have minimal nervous tics. I was able to just be present when I was practicing karate, like really hard workout.
Yeah.
Then all my nervous energy just exerted, so then I'm able to do this. But when I don't do that, and then I have like extra jitters, and that's when it has to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
Then it turns into these like nervous habits, or adjusting this, adjusting that.
There's a lag effect too.
What?
A lag effect where like you work out really hard, you've got a bunch of things going on, right? And then like you have some goal to hit, right? You got to run a marathon, right? And so every day, like my roommate's gonna get ready to run a marathon, and that motivation is causing him. He runs 5 miles a day, and the next day he's running 8 miles and 10 miles or whatever. He's doing those types of things, and I've seen some of my friends that like they'll finish whatever goal they hit, right, and then they're like, hey, I can eat whatever I want and I'm still fit, and you're like, yes, today you can, right, and then like the thing is like you'll do that, and there'll be like a week's worth of eating whatever you want. And then all of a sudden the weight will come on, right? And I think that there's a lag effect with anything you do. And so yeah, 1 day or 2 days you can get away with not doing those things, and it doesn't really affect you too much. But then it starts to stack, and and it starts to build, and you have to manage those things and realize that there's not an immediate, for the most part, an immediate effect of not doing the things you're supposed to. But they will stack and they will build, and you got to kind of manage it.
So I'm actually curious. So I learned an interesting concept from one of my podcast guests, is heading this project called the Longevity Project. His whole purpose right now, his own mission right now, is to help human beings extend their life. Because ultimately, if you have more life, then you have more space to do the things that you love to do, etc., etc.
Totally.
So his whole premise is, it's not about keeping your vegan diet, vegetarian diet, paleo diet, and your CrossFit and all these things. He said overstressing, or you condition your body to only for this particular range of homeostasis, let's say. He said that's actually not healthy. His whole contention is you actually want extremes. So go do your CrossFit workout, but don't stick with it. Take time off. Or eat really well for a while, but eat McDonald's. That's his whole thing. What's your point of view on that? What do you think?
Makes sense.
Is that accurate, or because that point of view is contrary to how we've been taught?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it is that I think he's got a point to the degree of there's things that you can do that are good stresses and bad stresses. Like, for example, if you said you should get up and get really upset and you should shout at someone every day so that you feel better, like that's not necessarily true, because it's nuance. There's good stresses and there's bad stresses, right? And I think by expanding out those comfortability zones, like if you go into war and you do an extreme activity and then you come back, people shouting at you isn't so big of a deal. And so it is good to stretch those things out. I just think there's things that will stretch the rubber band, and then the things that snap the rubber band. And knowing what does what is useful. Like I have a buddy who just got accepted into Y Combinator.
Oh, right. Awesome.
Super happy for the dude.
Yeah, that's great.
Great two guys. I love them both. But he used to do UFC fighting, right?
Oh, no kidding.
Right?
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
A bunch of fights.
Cool.
He talks like Batman. I love the guy. He's so
Serious?
great. He's so good. He's so
wow,
cool.
What a character.
He does a bunch of, he does these extreme activities, but then he does great customer development because he's not afraid to have anybody shout at him or yell at him or say anything because he's used to being punched in the face. And so
by comparison, that's nothing.
It's nothing, yeah. And in terms of like, stretching your body, but I think there's good stresses that does help you, that when you go back to doing normal daily activities, because you've been stressed in those ways, everything else doesn't have those effects. Like Rhonda Patrick, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she talks about how you basically have heat agents. So basically, if you do the sauna, one thing that they notice is if you do the sauna 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you have a 40% reduction in all mortality causes. So if you go into the sauna, you do that, your heat shock proteins. You have heat shock proteins and you have cold shock proteins. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it, but you do those things and those things get released, and it gives you those extra enzymes or whatever to basically extend your life to be longer. So cryo chamber, another way to do extreme activities. But is that the same thing with sugar? Should you have piles and piles of sugar every day and put your body through that kind of stress? Probably not. I mean, that's maybe I'll come out and find out that's not the case. But I think there's understanding that there's good ones and there's bad ones. It's just knowing what ones those aren't always clear to people.
Yeah. So, okay, let's actually get a little bit more tactical. So what are some of the ways that you do to stress yourself in a productive way?
Yeah, I mean, it's
body, mind, heart, spirit, business, all these things.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, a couple different ways that you do it, that I do it. I mean, like, so example, like, just like forcing yourself to do extremes that you're not used to, like the Vipassana, like, right? You're going so extreme in one direction that you're pushing your brain, your body in that. Another one is, like, for myself, is forcing myself to journal, doing those things that are so long.
So you don't like it? It's not a pleasant experience?
Well, you want to stop. Like, your brain wants to leave, and you're telling yourself, no, this is what we need to do. We need to continue on this path. You need to stay focused. You need to stay on top of it. You keep going until you're done. So that's one way to kind of force yourself to do something to kind of, extreme it out. For example, today I ran a couple of miles. I ran down to the beach and back, and I did that because, it's a good stressor for me. I had this funny thing where, like, I always, like, one of my fears is, like, running out of water, right? Right?
That's right.
Right? I have a thing, right?
I remember.
I have a thing. I don't know why. It's either maybe some childhood thing or a past life thing, or I don't have a really good answer, but I tend to freak out. And so I try to do things that I would feel uncomfortable with, and I just try to manage those feelings. And so I go running and I don't have water, and my body starts to freak out. I go, no. I said, look, you're going to be fine. We're going to get through this okay. You got to keep going, and you stay on it. That's one of the ones I do.
So you just run as far as you can?
Yeah, well, I ran it was like 5 miles and something, and it was just along the path, my body starts to, like, panic, and so I have to, like, mitigate those panics and go, look, that doesn't make any sense. Cold showers, that's another one. I do cold showers every day, and I go, oh, okay, cool. Can I take this? Okay, I can. And I try to, like, imagine that, like, there's moments throughout the day that you could freak out, you could snap, you could cry, you could run away, but I stress myself out in the morning by doing cold showers, pushing my body, meditating, journaling, a couple other things fairly consistently. And those things kind of keep me grounded and centered in those things. I haven't done it yet, but my buddy who got into Y Combinator, I've been looking into it. He does lobster diving.
What's that? Oh, actually dive into
snorkeling.
Interesting.
Over in the Laguna Beach area over here at night, where we have one of the largest concentrations of great whites in this area. And so
just thinking about it makes me
right. Wow. But he does it, and he comes up and he's got a couple of lobsters. He's brought them over to our house, and we've been able to cut them and open them and learn how to clean them and then cook them on the barbecue. And it's one of the greatest things ever. But, like, to me, like, that's super terrifying. But I think, facing those demons, and ultimately it's like,
Why at night, out of all place?
Because that's when they come out. They're nocturnal, and so the only time is really you got to go at night to go and grab them and stuff.
See.
He had this terrifying story about going into a cave where I was like, "What's your scariest, moment that you've had?" And he's like, "Okay, here's what happened. This is my. I have to say it like this because this is his voice in my head. But he's okay. They're in caves, right? So you see a cave hole, and you're diving in. So you're holding your breath. You go through a hole. You see 2 more holes, right? You choose the one on the right, and you go through that hole, and you look, and there's this room filled with lobsters, right? Filled.
Wow.
And then you swim over, you grab the lobster, and you look back, and there's 3 holes.
Shit.
He's like, what do you do, right? Like, what do you do? And so his thing was, I think he went through one for a second, got panicked, went out, went back through the right one, and then popped out. And he goes, I'm never doing another cave dive, while holding my breath again. But, those types of things make talking to a customer about your product that you over-identify with not such a big deal, right? And so are you willing to terrify yourself to be a better person,
That's interesting. So did you say UFC fighter? Mm-hmm. Actually, he went into the UFC?
It was professional cage fighting. I don't know if it was UFC. I know I think he only did like 4 fights or 6 fights. And he was undefeated.
Yeah, he was a pro. I mean, willingly go into a cage and get pummeled, right?
Yeah.
So question is about risk taking. Because in my mind, I wouldn't have taken the risk because the probability of death is not 0.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I tend to be probably a little bit more. People think I'm crazy because I'm doing like all these things, and people are like, "Wow, sauna and you get cold shower, cold bath, and hot bay." And, but I know that it's relatively safe. Probability of death is nearly 0 since it's not 0, right? So same thing with driving. It's pretty safe as long as I'm proactive about my surroundings.
Sure.
But cave diving, probability of death is game over.
Yes.
So
absolutely, it's more intense. The question is that there's people that are like, and I'm on the same thing too. I for example, I used to run a lot and listen to audiobooks, right? And I found out that I could trick myself to doing things I didn't want to do by entertaining my brain. I'd entertain my brain while I was listening to something I could run, right? I'm like, haha, I don't need to cultivate the skill of willpower because I've found a way to hack the system. The problem is there's no such thing as a free lunch. And so people like you maybe, you don't actually have to learn how to meditate, or you don't actually have to like learn the willpower of running while doing things, but then you lose out on something, right? There's people that face death that they get a certain amount of confidence and pride and belief in themselves, while people like myself, because I would be in the same boat of you, of like, look, I'm a smart monkey. I'm not going to put myself in a situation that's going to kill me because I love life and I think life is grand. And, but at the same time, then, neurotic thoughts of don't die pop in your head. And if you're not used to exposing yourself to extreme situations, those issues become smaller and smaller and smaller to where, if you let yourself, you'll box yourself into this world where you don't want to talk to anybody because that represents death.
I see.
You don't want to take an action.
Extreme.
Yeah. And so but the thing is, those types of people, and I'm not putting myself in the niche bucket, but there's a certain amount of they legitimately accept death. If it happens, it happens. And one of the downloads I got from ayahuasca was a man without fear is truly free. A man without fear is truly free. And the thing is that there's one thing to kind of do lip service that I'm not afraid, but it's another thing to like really accept death in your heart and put yourself in those situations and say, hey, if it does happen, I'm okay with it. And that's a really hard thing for us to come across because you're pushing against almost every primal instinct. But there's a freedom in that because we all have that certain level of caring. What will people think? What if I don't make it? What if I don't do this? And if you're risking your life, it will change you and, put a lot of things into perspective. And it's something I strive for.
Interesting. So one of the things I come to a realization of is, I strive to be this noble warrior, right? But I haven't actually stepped into an actual fight. Like, not just like a sparring thing, but an actual, maybe a cage fight.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, shouldn't I? So from this conversation, I'm thinking like, maybe I should, because this is something that, there's a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of fear.
Yeah.
Might as well give it a shot.
Well, it's like so many people, people know this, but like everything that stops us is fear, right? And we all are super afraid. The golden Buddha thing, the golden Buddha.
What's that?
There's a story about these monks, right? There's these monks, and they're at this village, and they're praying, and there's this golden Buddha, right? And the Buddha's made out of gold. And then all of a sudden, one day, these Mongols or some sort of raiders are going to come in, and the Buddhists have to go and leave. They have to, and so the monks, they go and they say, okay, we don't want them to take the golden statue. So what we do is we cover up the golden statue with a bunch of clay and a bunch of dirt and things like that, so they wouldn't look any good, right? And it works. They leave. And the horde shows up. They look around. They see this old muddy statue, Buddha statue, and and they book it and they take off. Well, the monks never really come back. They get driven off, right? And then all of a sudden, one day there's a kid playing by the statue and hits the thing, and then like a piece of it falls off, and he sees gold, and he comes back and he starts screaming to the villagers, the Buddha's golden, the Buddha's golden, and what that is a metaphor for our lives that basically. As kids, we were all free. We were all shining lights, and we found something. There was some reason why we weren't supposed to shine our light. There's some sort of cause that caused us to basically put on this armor, put on this stuff to cover ourselves up, because we didn't want people to steal our essence. We didn't want people to insult our passions or whatever that thing is. And so much of life is about basically removing that clay that you used as armor to protect yourself against the world. And to be able to apply that and free the golden Buddha inside you and let your inner self shine. And I just think that's true for so many people. They live in, including myself, you live in fear, and you're afraid of what people will think. You're afraid of dying. You're afraid of doing what you're really passionate about. And, part of trying to be a better human is doing proactive things that will shake off that mud or whatever's, stopping you from being bright and shiny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once again, I gotta thank you for this inspiration.
Cool,
for what we're doing right now is exactly that. I really enjoy having, to me, deep, meaningful conversations, asking what ultimately makes your life matter. And I've been looking for people who's willing to do that with me. And I thought to myself, well, very few people are interested in this. But thanks to your inspiration, I was like, fuck it, I mean, put on a recorder, have this conversation.
Love it, man.
With whoever, and then those that are interested in it, they're gonna download it, they're gonna subscribe, they're gonna comment, and those who don't. It's all right.
Yeah, it's okay. If you do things that interest you and things you enjoy, you will stand for something, and people resonate with that, whatever that thing might be, because not a lot of whoever, maybe not a lot of people will like this, and some people find it interesting, and other people are like, I want to hear about the Kardashians. Like I'm into that kind of thing, and that's cool too. That's
right. That's all right.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're doing it, man, and putting it out there. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to like let your voice be heard, because once you let it be heard, then people can judge it.
All right.
And then you're like, oh no,
No, right.
And anyone who's become famous or has a message, and they will get shit on. There is a certain amount of population that will get shit on. I ran a community. I don't do it as active right now, but I noticed that like when I threw events and I had like 100 people, there was like one person that was kind of a jerk, right? And I did bigger events where there was like 1,000 people, and there was a couple more people that were jerks. There's always this ratio of almost everyone's cool, but then there's a little bit of jerkiness. And so if you have 1 million people download, you're gonna have 1,000 jerks, and you will focus on that stuff, and it's just about like
So how do you let yourself not be impacted by the naysayers?
Sure.
The one person or the 10 people or the 100 people who came to your events.
Yeah, inoculation.
No, say more about that.
Just like,
do you because some celebrities, they never look at their comments, right?
Yeah, there's two ways to go with it, right? Like with most things in this world, there's probably more, but you can look at it and face it and accept it, and that's one way. So you look at that and you realize, okay, that message is not for me. That message that I got is not about me. That message is about them and being in pain. It's about them and them screaming out into the world of quiet desperation, why am I not famous? Or why am I, why does my mom always yell at me? And you know what I'm saying? Like, and they look at you and they see your happiness and they want to feel better. And so we do a thing called, what's it called? It's called deference or something like that. If I'm in pain, the humans are this way, monkeys are this way. If all of a sudden I get a random electrical shock and I'm like, ow, and I smack you, right? My pain centers actually decrease, like in your brain.
That's interesting.
Because it's a deference of pain. And it's because we're social creatures. I'm in pain, so I want you to feel pain. I'm happy, I want you to be happy. And the thing is, whenever I see people that are really just start freaking out on you in the streets or whatever they're doing, I always equate that to pain. And I just go, that person is in so much pain that they can't even keep it together, that, they're like, why won't someone listen or whatever? And so, I mean, recognizing that, generally speaking, that message isn't about you, it's about them being in pain. And then, that's one way to face it. Or you can just ignore it and just never let it, filter it all out, and that's another way. I think there's repression, and then there is processing. And, you can repress things, and if you can have enough handlers that filter out all your messages and then you get all that stuff, great.
Right.
Good for you. But the healthiest way, if you can, is to process, is to look at that, understand that, tell yourself a better story, accept that, and then move on. So
beautiful. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
So, a new question.
Sure.
Support system, communities. Why are your best friends your best friends? And how do you surround yourself with people who elevates, your level of consciousness, your level of presence, business or otherwise? Why are your best friends your best friends?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, me specifically, or just people in general?
You specifically.
Me specifically.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay. My friends that I've had my good friends I've had for close to 20 years. Matt would be my best friend. The reason why he's my best friend is that I think we very much balanced each other out. I think that my things that I focused on, he didn't, and then things that he focused on, I didn't, and so we balanced out each other really well. I was very much like a grindy, I've got to make things happen, overachiever. I need to self-validate, improve myself, and grow and get better in those things. And he's very much a jolly, everything's okay, where it's all going to work out, things are going to be awesome.
The yin and the yang.
Yeah. And so we very much have kind of been like, I'm kind of the relationship, the prefrontal cortex, and he's the limbic system, and we kind of work together in harmony in those ways. And I think
I love that you can pull that in. Yeah, that's good. It's cool.
But as we spent more time together, and he's helped run my last business and help run this business as well, we've kind of worked on not only just relying on the other person for his competent skills, but also cultivating and seeking our own skills from that side. So he's become more intellectual. He's become more organized and all those good things. And I've tried to become more empathetic and more caring and more connected. And so we did that because I feel like our own styles balance each other out really well with each other. And so that's kind of why me and him are best friends. And I think also, there's odd idiosyncrasies, people that are, you have unique traits that you guys both find odd or unique that we both enjoy together. And then also battle buddies, people that are willing to go places with you. And I think there's been a lot of times growing up with him that, I've gone places or done things, and he's always been down for the adventure. And I think that, so many times just in relationships you have, there's different friends that bring out different feelings and help you along, so maybe some people are more wild than you, and so they invite you along for the adventure, and you just sign it because you want to be that wild person, but you just go along. Or maybe they like the fact that you do a lot of boot camps, and so they want you to do those things. And so I think it's about, do they give you the feelings that you want, right? And with them is like, do you feel like they care about you and your journey that you're on, right? And I think if they don't give you those feelings that you want, right, and if they don't give you like the support of what you're trying to do, then you don't really connect with them. And so a lot of my friends are entrepreneurs, self-improvers, people that want to learn and grow and are kind of constantly reaching out to try to be them best selves and try to make a difference and make an impact and And I think those people are very inspiring. And I also kind of like, you know, like with you, like you've always been at the tip of the spear of what's possible. And there's been so many things that you like have done, you know, Burning Man and ayahuasca and all these other things that like a person that was complacent, it's cool if they're happy and that's what they do and that's great. But then you like people that are, you feel are part of your tribe, right? You feel like you connect, you feel like you belong. And I think people, at least for me, my tribe are people that are challenging themselves, challenging life, challenging status quo, and they're not doing things because society says to. They're doing things because they want to. They feel like they can make a difference, and that's the game that they play. So
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I appreciate you including me in that tribe.
You are, man, for sure, 100%.
Switch topic a little bit more. So let's look ahead, because you switched from a burger truck to virtual reality.
Yeah.
One may say it's a big jump.
Yeah.
How did you make that choice, and then what do you see possible with virtual reality?
Sure. Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, one thing being is that I use the same guiding principle that I use with burgers. You know, I'm a professional big kid, burgers and video games, right? And so you think about what really motivated me. It was just like I opened up the book and I was like, oh my God, these burgers are amazing, right? I put on the VR headset. Oh my God, these things are amazing. I was successful in the food truck business by rallying around other people, complementary skill sets, my peers, and we did food truck meetups, right? So you had a bunch of people that got together and you all learned from each other and you all collaborated, and the sum of the parts were greater than the individuals. And you know, we made a meetup group and we connected with like-minded people that were passionate about the same things we're passionate about, and we learned and grew and got better. The reason why I think virtual reality is fascinating is that I think that, you know, virtual reality or augmented reality, or some people call it mixed reality or extended reality or whatever you want to call it, being able to write the game of life is very fascinating to me. And I think with virtual reality or any of those other types of modalities, you have the ability to step into a world and become immersed in it. And I mean, we are experiential beings. You are right now, you are listening to what I'm saying, you are watching me, you are touching, you are basically experiencing the world. And virtual reality is basically the ability to 100% take over two of your senses, your hearing and your sight, right? And so right now we've had the ability to dominate those senses and be able to control that input. And so if you are basically writing the story of life, if you are controlling your own story, then there is a ways to be able to, you know, tell a different story, tell a better story, hijack that, and be able to do that. And so I found it fascinating that, you know, you then, for the first time ever in history, have the ability to step into these worlds that we created and then live the worlds we wanted to live, to be the people we want to become. And so that's what I think is possible with it. And it's one of the ultimate mediums because it gives you the ability to connect with anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. And, you know, we're all about connecting with other people. And I think that the reason why we find it fascinating, and the reason why I find it fascinating, is the fact that you can control your environment. You can, you know, pick whatever you want to do and then make it happen. And so there's not a lot of technology that allows for that to be possible.
So for you, it's a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, there was no brain involved in the sense it was just the feeling of, oh my God, this is amazing. If I find this amazing, other people's amazing. Now what's possible? And then, you know, slowly realizing that people think that this is much like startups and things. They think this is a mountain to climb and I'm at the top. Oh, virtuality is it. Well, no, it's not it. It's one piece of technology that allows us to become more immersed in a reality that we choose, and allows us to, you know, be able to be more connected with the world around us and the people that we care about. And if you're at the forefront of that, you know, you have the ability to kind of shape and choose the path that you go on with that technology. So yeah, I think life is a game. It's more fun to do with your friends. And, you know, virtuality is one way to make that happen.
Because some people who is maybe getting to, they may want to consume, they may want to be a part of that. But they may not want to be a producer.
Sure.
They may want to be a consumer of it, but not a producer of it. So a lot of people are very excited, very inspired by what's possible.
Yeah.
But they didn't just sell their business to start one.
Sure.
Right. So how did you make that decision?
Sure.
Was it literally like a gut check, but like, hey, fuck it, let's just see what happens?
Yeah, I think we learn lessons from the things that we've done, right? And so for me, I try to start a whole bunch of businesses. That's just been my thing, a lifelong. I'm interested in these different types of businesses. So when I was a kid, I was trying to, build different types of contraptions and things and stuff and open these different companies all since I was young, all the way up till now. And the most successful I've been is when I burn the bridge behind me and I follow what I'm passionate about. And so, I tried a bunch of different businesses when I was working at the hotel industry that didn't work. What worked for me was burning the bridge behind me, quitting my job, and then just saying, one way or another, I'm going to figure this out. And if I had my job at that time, I don't think I would have stuck with it. I think I would have done a weekend. I think I would have burnt myself. I would have cut my finger off and been like, you know what? I'm cool. This other thing's much more comfortable. And I think if you don't allow remember I told you turning a should into a must? I had no other way. And so for me, by not giving myself an out, by turning my should into a must, then I was forced to move forward. And if you just, recognize, that it's going to be uncomfortable now, but if you just stick with it and you want to do this, it will get easier, it will get better, and you will build more momentum. And so burn the bridge behind you, find something you're passionate about, and then just keep going and be open and honest and learn along the way. And that will help you, become who you want to become, do what you want to do, whatever the thing is. That's the way I set it up to make it happen.
So tactically, should people just burn the bridge and go do it?
Yeah. Because here's why. Because then you go, well, then what happens? Okay, let's just say you quit your job. You quit your job, you don't do it, and then you do what you're passionate about. Okay. So you'll either find a way or you'll end up on the streets. And if you end up on the streets, what's wrong with that? And the thing is that you just gotta go, is it worth it? Is it worth, losing all your money? Is it worth selling your car? Is it worth is your passion worth the risk? And I think that a lot of people go, well, I have a family, or I have kids,
right.
or I have too many reasons, and basically what they're saying is, I'm scared. I'm scared and I'm afraid, and here's why my excuse is more important than your excuse. And to me, it's just I like to find excuses to keep going, not excuses to stop. And I
see. I have these excuses and I'm going to keep doing it anyway, versus I have these excuses and then here's why I should stop.
Yeah, and if you can make the reason why you're not doing it being the reason why you are doing it. So I'm saying, well, I can't do this because I have kids. Well, I have to do this because I have kids, And say my kids would be more proud. I don't know. I don't have kids. I can't speak to it specifically, but just, just finding a way to, say, okay, if this is what you're really passionate about, how are you going to go for it all out? And how are you going to make sure that you don't give yourself a way out? And if you can find a way to make sure that there's no way for you to escape, whatever that might be, tell 10 of your friends, make a giant bet, put whatever the things
Start a podcast.
Start a podcast, right? And find a way that, and have plans for that. Be like, okay, what would stop you from doing these things? What would stop you from doing this? And then have a plan for when that thing happens. So when that thing happens, that thing's going to happen. So if you, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, if you ran out of all your money, right, and you didn't have any more money, what would you do to continue the podcast?
Right.
And just find out what would make you continue on that podcast, and then just keep going until it works. And I just think that so many people they can't find their reason for why to do it, and or won't allow themselves to see it. And so that would be my thing, is find a way to make yourself do it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what does it mean to be a man in modern times? Kind of the whole premise of this podcast is for men to discuss what it's like to be a man in modern times.
Yeah.
So we cover a lot of different topics. Let's cover that.
Sure. Yeah, so what's it like to be a man in modern times? I think what it is dynamic. I think that, we had these ideas of, men are strong, and they're aggressive, and they're violent, and they're loud, and they're dominating, right? And that was one side, and then we kind of did this pendulum swing into the other side, where it's well, no, we're soft, and we're accepting, and we're these things. And I think what it is it's a balanced character. I think it's someone that is soft front, strong back, wild heart. I think Brene Brown says that. But I think having the ability to have strong values, having belief in yourself, having confidence in yourselves, but also caring about other people, also having that connection with other people. I don't think that a man has to be like, just such a dominating force. I think a man should be someone who's a leader of a village, who has principles, who has hopes, but is vulnerable enough to speak to their fears, but from a place of power, from a place of, hey, look, guys, this is what is, and this is how I feel, and I'm okay with that. There's a security and that. So I think being a man is a dynamic character where you're both masculine and feminine, and you don't run from those things. You embrace them, and when something threatens your tribe, someone threatens your village, you're the one that takes it, and you're the one that takes the hits, because your job is to be that protector, but you're also a lover and you're also a friend. And so you have to hold a multifaceted role.
Yeah, in my mind, it's very much a yin and yang principle. We do have the masculine, we do have the feminine. And then I want that range. Yeah. Right? Because in my mind, trained as a Chinese person, you stay in the masculine range. You want to actually be as masculine as you can. And then I had zero range in terms of ability to be soft and all that. Yeah. So, but throughout my own journey, I had to really come to a good situation, a good harmonious point. So I actually developed that range in time.
Love it.
Who for you exemplify, could be a fictional character or a real person, exemplify that modern man archetype?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I think this is coming, is Joe Rogan. I mean, I think Joe Rogan has the ability to not only be strong and push himself, and is very, demanding on his bodies and his morals and his obligations and principles, but he can also talk about feelings, and he can be very authentic and be very true to himself. And I think that authenticity of being, communicating your fears and your desires, and the fact that you weren't perfect and you need to put that out there and get feedback is he exemplifies, in my mind, a very powerful and true man.
Cool. Well, lastly, is there anything that people wanted to follow with you, to continue on this journey with you? Is there any website or social that you wanted to send people to?
Yeah, sure. Feel free to visit our website, realitysmash.com, and you can email me, dylan@realitysmash.com, if you have any questions about virtual reality or augmented reality. If you want to figure out what it is and how you can apply it to you and your business, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to let you know what you could do.
Beautiful. Cool. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Cool. Hey, Dylan, really acknowledge you for sharing everything you share your story, share very tactical things that people can take on.
Yay.
And so that they can, follow their dreams and really live an extraordinary life. Thank you so much for everything.
I appreciate it, man. I enjoyed the journey and the experience along the way.